I saw Michael Jackson perform live in concert when I was 14 years old. It was November 1996 and his History World Tour had touched down in Adelaide, and I'd been an obsessive fan since 1991 when the Dangerous album completely engulfed me. I consumed everything. The albums, the movies, the documentaries. I wanted to dance like him. I dreamt of meeting him, and yes, I wanted to be one of those lucky boys, the ones I always saw Michael with at public appearances, at the theme parks, in hotel rooms, on tour, at Neverland. Who were these boys, and how had they been so lucky to become the best friend of the most famous man in the whole wide world? As the years went on and the allegations started to build, I became very glad that I never became one of those boys, and today my relationship with Jackson is complicated. With his biopic about to gross $1 billion and 2 active pending cases against his estate, this felt like the moment to explore the patterns of behaviour most of the world still knows very little about, and what his superfans' apparent inability to think critically says about our need for idols. But I can't moonwalk into this episode alone. I'm gonna need a man whose single biggest regret in life is that he never got to defend Jackson in court. John, are you ready to hee-hee, shamon, and argue that a 40-year-old adult man sleeping in a bed with children he is not a parent of potentially thousands of times is very sweet and very charming?
Sure, yeah. Can I just take one of those? I'm ready to hee-hee. The other one's less so.
I'll hee-hee.
Yeah.
And if pressed, I will shamon. But I didn't like the last one.
Yeah, fascinating. And it is a topic that we've kind of flirted with at different times because it's a Schlagberger with a lot, as we like to say here on Don't Praise the Machine. It's got celebrity, it's got kind of weird fan culture, it's got kind of bloodthirsty commercial interests at play, holly weird stuff going on. And also you're in the unique position of coming at this not as a casual observer, as an average layperson, but as somebody who deeply loved MJ and his music, and I guess still enjoys his music to this day.
Yeah.
And yet is not so myopic that you're unable to see the ugly side of the coin. So looking forward to moonwalking into the abyss, as it were.
Yeah, that's good. That would be a good that'll be a good episode. An episode title: Michael Jackson moonwalking. Actually, that's a great documentary title: Moonwalking into the abyss. Into the abyss. And speaking of documentaries, I have watched 2 3-part documentaries on Michael Jackson that have been made within the last 6 months. The BBC did one, which was more about his life and about his life being a kind of tragic tale. And it was from start to finish, like from him being in the Jacksons, in the Jackson 5, all the way through to his death. And then Netflix has just released this a 3-part series in the last couple of weeks, which focuses specifically on the 2005 trial where he was accused of sexually abusing Gavin Arvizo.
Yeah,
and it's just one of the reasons that I've always wanted to do an episode about this, or that I mean, if you get me in a dinner party, I can just talk about Michael Jackson because I was a super fan. I guess I still am a super fan of the music, but I'm also a grown adult with critical thinking skills. And so I think if you just start to piece together, and I was saying a little bit of this to you before we started recording the episode, I all these little things that I heard about him growing up that I would dismiss, like LaToya would say something weird, and then like some no name from the UK would like do an interview with a tabloid, and I'd just be like, these people are all just out for money, or it's just a story. And then as time has gone on, and particularly since he's died, I think more stories have come out, and also more things that were actually came up in the trials in 1993 and the And you're just like, man, I didn't know a lot of this stuff. You just kind of put it together and be at the very least, the person that he was being portrayed as when we were growing up is completely different to the type of man that he was.
Yeah.
behind,
Okay. Interesting.
behind closed doors.
And how long ago was because there was a real watershed moment for kind of casual observers, at least, who, had people like me who had heard things in the 2000s and in the 90s, but could kind of tell themselves if they wanted to keep listening to his music and go to his musicals and watch his films and have a Michael Jackson bobblehead on their dashboard, they could tell themselves, like that didn't really go anywhere. That's right. Like, it's not like he ended up in prison, and there was a whole bunch of other weird that people said about him, which turned out to be kind of National Enquirer level fabrication. And so who the hell knows? And you could sort of tell yourself that. And then there was that documentary where they interviewed a couple of the boys that you mentioned in the introduction, and it went into kind of detail that obviously people were that not only went into detail, but kind of went into corroborative detail that made it seem very hard to maintain that level of plausible deniability. But that was years ago. I mean, that was pre-COVID, and we're still, the MJ musical has just done a kind of sellout tour in Australian. It was at Her Majesty's Theatre, which is a big space in Melbourne. It was at other places in Sydney and Brisbane, etc. And people are still just kind of like feeling fine about buying each other tickets to that show and going and lining up for it. They're not skulking in the back entrances. They're happy to be like, this is going to be great. All our favorite songs. And not only that, but like I'll go to a pub or whatever, and I'll hear a song of his come on, and I'll think, what's happening here? Why haven't we made a decision as a culture? Or maybe we have made a decision that we're just gonna go with the fictional version of MJ and not worry too much about all that stuff that happened. We're going to, as we say on Don't Praise the Machine, separate the flute from the flautist and move on.
I'm able to separate the flute from the flautist, and so I can enjoy his music. Yeah, it speaks to the fact that his music is so woven into the fabric of culture and into all of our lives in a way that other artists who have been convicted in some cases of wrongdoing. So you think of somebody like R. Kelly. Yeah. And because everybody's just like, remix to Ignition is good, but I could do without it, Yeah. So everybody's just like, throw him under the bus. But Michael Jackson, it's just 30 years of absolute bangers, 40 years of absolute bangers. I think he died when he was 50. So, he's releasing music before he was even 10. So almost 50 years of just absolute bangers throughout our lives. And not only do people really want to have to think about the fact or grapple with the fact that he might have been, although being one of the most talented people that's ever graced God's green earth, he also was potentially quite terrible to children. That's just something people just don't really want to wrestle with. And I also think just for a lot of people, I think for a lot of people, which I think is actually kind of okay, I think a lot of people are just like, look, I got a busy life, man. I love Man in the Mirror. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, I just want to keep on liking Man in the Mirror. Yeah, that's right. But I think I take a little bit of an issue with like the super fans that are just
for sure, because that's a different thing, right? They're not just going like, well, I can't change the fact that this is a really well arranged song. And it's not going to help anyone if I don't listen to it. But, to sort of actually stick your neck out and say, as some fans will do, this is all bullshit, and it was character assassination, or he was misunderstood or whatever, that's obviously a different level. I think I forgot to mention, but Leaving Neverland is, of course, the one I was referring to before, which was 2019.
Yeah. Have you seen it?
I still haven't seen it.
Man, it's
partly
really
because
worth watching.
It's never struck me as a nice way to unwind after a hard day at work. I'm like choosing between old Simpsons, and Leaving Neverland.
Just like I've got two things that happened in the 90s that I could focus on: Simpsons or the behavior of Michael Jackson.
Yeah, that's right. I go to sleep at night. I listen to old Seinfeld episodes, and I mean, I'm able to put to one side Jerry Seinfeld's commentary on the war in Gaza and just enjoy those episodes. But that's as much flute and flautist separation as I can manage of an evening.
But yeah, maybe just for anybody who doesn't know, I think a lot of people will be familiar with a lot of this, but his reputation when it came to boys was untarnished until 1993. So obviously Michael Jackson, he's in Jackson 5, they're signed to Motown, he goes on, like they're a phenomenon. They were like, they were called, I think they were being called like the Black Kennedys, you know, right. Because they were just this incredibly talented, well managed, apparently somewhat brutally managed family of singers and musicians, and people can love them. And I mean, even now, oh man, some of those Jackson 5 songs, just incredible. And him as a child, just a generational talent. If you were to see that boy start singing Michael Jackson, and you're just like that tone, his age and his ability to perform like that, just incredible. So Jackson's a huge, the Jackson 5. He leaves the Jackson 5, starts his own career, and he's just like a phenomenon, and he becomes, without question, I think most people have argued that he was at his peak, the most famous man on the planet. So you could go to like quite remote parts of like Africa, and people would recognize pictures of him in a way that even today with our hyper connected internet culture. So obviously this is pre-internet culture. He was just ubiquitous across the world. You could show people like the Pope, and they would, and more people would know Michael Jackson than knew the Pope. So such was the power of his celebrity. Thriller 1982 comes out. That's the biggest selling album of all time. Bad 1987. And then he also, as he starts to be in the public eye more after Thriller, he starts to like, this episode really isn't about this, but he's in the media all the time because he's a decidedly odd figure. He is, for whatever reason, his skin is changing color, his face is changing. He stopped doing interviews, and he is kind of, there are whispers, very kooky behavior. He's got a chimpanzee as a pet. He doesn't ever really seem to be dating women. What the hell's going on? What the hell's going on with this guy? So the media are like obsessed with him. And then what happened in 1992 was his car broke down in LA, and he had to go to like a breakdown service. And one of the men at the breakdown service was the stepfather of a boy called Jordan Chandler, and this man, Jordan Chandler's stepdad, meets Michael Jackson. And he's like, wow, you're Michael Jackson, your car broken down. This is pretty cool. He's like, my stepson's a huge fan. Do you want to have a chat to him? I think they had a phone call. And then this thing happens.
It was just vapor lock.
It was what?
Just vapor lock. It
was just vapor. It was just vapor lock, he said.
I'm Joe Namath. My car broke down.
I'm Joe Namath.
Even that is kind of an amazing story because he's such a otherworldly figure at that time. I can't imagine him having problems like his car breaking down. He just exists on a different plane where that sort of thing doesn't happen.
Me too.
But there you go.
Me too. I mean, and the more that I've got to know him, the more you realize that he actually was making himself a lot more accessible behind the snes than it
Right.
ever appeared. Like
Yeah,
when you knew, like, to be honest, if I knew that if I knew that he was, I mean, I'm going to get, maybe I'll just get, I won't preempt this.
Yeah.
I'm sure he had a driver. They have some kind of issue. They go
Yeah.
to the car service. They meet Chandler's stepdad, and then, do you want to chat to my son, Jordan? Okay, cool.
Right.
And then this thing happens, which I've come to learn through like getting to know Michael Jackson stories over the years, is a pattern of behavior that he seems to have had for years around LA, which is like so fascinating and weird, and just makes me, I cannot help but just think about how bizarre this must have been. But he would basically befriend these families, and then and the Chandlers are not the only one, but would take Jordan Chandler's family as a start. So he befriends this Chandler family, and then very quickly he's like going around to their family house and hanging out with them in some like suburban like LA home, and And so, of course, he would just come around the first time and be like, "Yo, it's me, Michael." Everybody's like losing their mind because literally the most famous person on earth, is secretly in your home. If people knew that he was in your home, there would be thousands of people out the front of the home in the tabloids straight away. So you just have this person in your home, and then eventually, what would happen is that he would eventually sort of convince the parents to allow the young boy that he had befriended to sleep in a bedroom alone with him. And June Chandler is Jordan's mother, and she testified in. So just to skip forward a little bit, Jordan Chandler's the first boy that accuses him in 1993. Okay. So this is the first time that the empire of Jackson starts to collapse, because after Michael Jackson spending like countless, I think like 30 to 50 times of sleeping in a bed alone with Jordan Chandler, who was, I think it was like 10, 11, 12 at the time. Jordan Chandler's comes forward and says, "Hey, I was sexually abused by Michael Jackson. And so, we're going to sort this out."
Yeah.
But in the 2005 trial, when Michael Jackson was accused by a second boy, Gavin Arvizo, the prosecution called Chandler's mother, and she said that Jackson had come to her shaking and crying, saying, "June, is our relationship based on trust and love? Why don't you love me?" Basically, because she was like hesitant to let Jordan sleep in his room. And then eventually she's just like, whatever. He didn't have a childhood. He's like, he doesn't have women or men that he's in relationships with. So he's probably he's probably like asexual. In fact, I think June may have even said she thought that he may have been gay and only interested in adult men.
Okay.
So she like lets Jordan sleep in his room, and then she's given after this a Cartier gold bracelet from Jackson.
Wow.
And this pattern of him like befriending these families in LA and around the world, I'm sure, but mostly LA, and then like turning up at their homes. And this went on like there's a family that's accused him of wrongdoing at the moment called the Cascio family, who they may be slightly problematic as witnesses, or what's the word? So problematic as
plaintiffs, I guess, or accusers.
But I don't know. I haven't looked into them deeply enough. But they're another family that he befriended and would hang out with for years and years. So just imagine that, John. Just imagine like this and this is what I didn't know as a kid. I didn't know. And this I guess I didn't want anyone to know this because A, it's deeply weird, and B, it goes against his like mystique that this man who's supposed to be all like cool was just like turning up at the homes of regular families in LA and having sleepovers like hundreds of times over decades.
And was doing that obviously discreetly enough that nobody was, there might have been whispers about it, but it's not like the press got wind. Oh, Michael Jackson's in that guy's house, because as you say, then there would have been like helicopters flying around. But imagine being that dad, being a mechanic, your alarm goes off, and you go out to eat your cornflakes, and then Michael Jackson's just there coming out of the toilet. It's like, this is the weirdest that ever happened.
This is what I'm saying. I just cannot, like, just imagining that. Yeah,
So
exactly. Or in the
so
morning,
insane.
he just like comes out of your son's bedroom in his jammies, just rubbing sleep out of his eyes, going, "Hey, have you got any cornflakes?" He's just like, what? What world is this?
But also, it is kind of more like it obviously puts the narrative that he was pushing at the time, particularly after that all that stuff came to light, puts it under strain, because the implication was always like, these children, you know, they come to me and they are interested in like spending time at my ranch, and you know, I love my fans and I want to give them a good time, and then for whatever reason they are like, you know, maybe out of self-interest, or maybe their stories have been misrepresented by the press, but it's all kind of getting, you know, out of control, and it's not my doing. Whereas to kind of actually seek these people out and put yourself in that position is more incriminating, you would think, and just very hard to explain in an innocent way.
Well, I think what's worth pointing out is that Jackson's defenders will always claim that, and he always claimed, and you know, his team always claimed, and in fact the parents of the boys would always claim, "Oh, my boy like pressured me to let him sleep in Michael Jackson's room," which I don't doubt is true.
Right.
But as you say, initially what would happen is that Michael would kind of find the boys through these chance encounters, like the Cascio family. Jackson used to go, the Cascio family's dad. The dad managed a really ritzy hotel that Michael used to stay at. Michael befriends the dad. Yeah. The dad probably says, "Oh yeah, I've got kids," and Michael's like, "You should have me over for dinner." And then Michael comes over for dinner. But it's such a kind of like disingenuous or unhelpful thing to say, "Oh yeah, my children wanted to hang out with Michael Jackson," because every child wanted to hang out with Michael Jackson. Like, what are you talking about? Like, of course they did. Yeah. Like, I used to look at those boys. Yeah. I didn't know who they were at the time because there was no internet. I've come to know the name of like every boy that he used to spend time with, and I know how much time they spent at Neverland. Two of them are Australian as well. I dodged a bullet. John.
Could have, that's right. You did dodge a bullet. I mean, fucking hell. But then fast forward till, you know, there's the 1993 trial, there's the 2005 trial. Obviously, at the time, there was a lot of people who were still, you know, scratching their head about whether any of this was true. And he was, you know, no doubt he was doing his very best, as were people around him, to kind of control the narrative. And then, you know, but I mean, now I just don't understand. Like, it blows me away that, as you say, there are still people who are pushing this line that, oh, this wasn't his fault, or it's all been misunderstood, or it's misconstrued, because it just seems to be like so far beyond, you know, the sort of satisfaction of any reasonable doubt. But also because I feel like we've changed a bit as a society. Like, I think people in the 90s, you know, might have been a bit more naive or a bit more kind of easily manipulated into buying this kind of story. Whereas now we just go, there's no way that's even remotely plausible, that you just thought it was sweet to kind of lie next to a boy. I mean, that's just rubbish.
Maybe I can just run through a bit more of the evidence. I just wanted to talk about that particular thing about this, because I do, like I said, I do just love to imagine just like Michael Jackson in your LA home in 1993. So Jordan Chandler, there's the accusation in 93.
Yeah.
It's about to go to trial. Jackson settles for reported $23 million to make that go away. Okay. So doesn't go to trial. Yep. And Michael Jackson, of course, claims, "Hey, look, I'm about to go on tour. Yeah. Like, I just need this to go away. This is no admission of guilt." And then like for the next few years, and this is kind of interesting to try and remember, because I saw him in concert in 96. His History album came out in 95, and I was like super excited. So kind of within 2 years after he paid this family $23 million to go away, his reputation was not completely untarnished, but it was untarnished enough. Like we'd all just kind of collectively forgotten that, you know, that had happened, or we just thought, oh yeah, it obviously didn't do anything. It's no admission of guilt.
Yeah.
And then I guess he just kind of plodded along, and people just thought, oh yeah, he seems pretty weird.
Yeah.
But you know, whatever, he can keep it. But you know, nothing's ever been proven. Probably that kid was just out for money. Why?
Yeah.
Because it's just one kid for as far as we know. It's just Jordan Chandler. It's probably like money hungry, whatever.
Sure.
Then in 2005, Michael invited this journalist, Martin Bashir, who Michael apparently liked because Bashir had done an interview with Princess Diana, and Jackson was like a huge Diana fan. And so he's like, I love. So he gets this Martin Bashir to come and follow Michael Jackson for like months, I think.
Yeah.
And he's just following him around, and Michael Jackson shows him the Neverland Ranch, and he's like, look, I love theme parks. And Martin Bashir is like, oh yeah, cool. This is a pretty wacky guy. And, you know, we're getting to see inside his wacky world, but there's no scoop. And then I saw Martin Bashir retell this story on this recent Netflix documentary. Martin Bashir says that one day during filming, I think they were almost about to wrap up the documentary, and Jackson tells Bashir at Neverland, hey, I want you to meet this boy. I want you to meet this boy that I've cured of cancer. And he just brings Gavin Arvizo out. Right. And then Gavin sits next to Michael Jackson and puts his head on his shoulder. And Michael's like, look, I've cured Gavin of cancer. And then during that moment, it comes out. I'm not sure if Jackson or Arvizo offers the information, but Jackson and Arvizo start discussing that Gavin Arvizo sleeps in Michael Jackson's bedroom. Yeah, and Martin Bashir says the rest of the crew were just like, because he's just saying on like Martin Bashir's like, you paid that kid $23 million in 1993. And you're telling me on camera with this boy next to you that you're a 40-year-old man and you're sleeping in a bed with children. And then time passes, the media, the tabloids go crazy, and they're like, we got to find this Gavin kid. Because that airs. Yep. And then the Arvizos
I remember that footage.
That's right. And then the Arvizo family comes forward and says, hey, actually, we were abused by Michael Jackson. Now, it's worth also mentioning that the Arvizos they had said, like a lot of these boys said for years that nothing had happened. This is not uncommon with like abuse victims, but it is worth saying that a lot of these people had kind of defended Michael at one point and said nothing, he would never do anything wrong. Yeah. And then they changed their story. That's the same with like Wade Robson. That's the same with several of his accusers. The Cascio family famously defended him for years and now have this huge suit against him. But I think it's just worth – so you got the 93 case, you got the 2005 case. So suddenly now you're starting to go – as me, I remember thinking, okay, now there's two cases. That's a little bit odd. And then since he's died – like, because he was acquitted in 2005, but the Arvizos were kind of problematic. Were problematic plaintiffs as well. Like the mum had been involved in like a fraud scam and stuff like that, which the defense really seized on. But I just thought it's probably worth just running through some of the other stuff. Like, so you've got the 93 case with Jordan Chandler. Then you've got Arvizo in 2005. During the 2005 trial, you have all of this like evidence that I don't really think people know. And there's one thing in particular, me as a fan was just like, okay, now this is not adding up. Because as a child, I was sold the fact that Michael Jackson never had a childhood. He was this like stunted. He was sort of developmentally stunted.
Just sort of weird man child.
He was a weird man child, and he was this kind of asexual person who didn't have any sexuality to him.
And the idea that he was doing these things, you could sort of say, well, perhaps he didn't have any understanding of boundaries because he just had such a weird relationship with his own parents and intimacy. And, you know, it did seem kind of conceivable that he was just on such a different page in terms of acceptable standards of behavior that it was somehow explainable in a way that wasn't predatory, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And also because he portrayed himself and his image was of this like Peter Pan asexual person.
Yeah.
That of course makes it like when you see him with Jordan Chandler in 1993, he's like, there's footage of him at a music awards in 1993 with his first accuser, Jordan Chandler, before the accusation, obviously. And he's Jordan Chandler's on his knee and he's bouncing him on his knee. And I guess everybody was just like, oh yeah, he's just like a kid too. It's just like one kid bouncing another kid on his knee. But then in the 2005 trial, it comes out that some of the material seized at Neverland was dozens of sexually explicit books, magazines, DVDs that were admitted as evidence. The judge ruled prosecutors couldn't say pornography. They had to say adult material. And some material featured young boys. There's a couple of books that get a lot of attention. I think they are these there's two books that I think were released, or one of them I think was released by like a convicted pedophile, but he wasn't convicted at the time. And it's like young nude boys, look how healthy and young they are kind of thing. And one of those books was apparently there. And so immediately I remember when I read that and like it really was like a lightning bolt, like a like such a lightning shock to me, because I was just like, hang on, this person who I was told the reason he's allowed to sleep in bed with dozens of boys all these years is because he's this playful, asexual character. And maybe as a parent, I would have been like, oh, he's just asexual, childlike Michael. But as soon as you know that he's got adult material in his room, and now you're letting boys sleep in his room?
Now it's seeming more like a man with, you know, certain appetites, obviously, that are, it's not all kind of, you know, it's somebody who, is accountable in the same way any other adult would be. Like interesting.
Yeah, in the same way that you would just, you know, if I said to you, if I was like, hey, John, you're my mate, John, and, you know, you have a kid and you and me, and I'm like, she's a bit of all right. I'm showing you Playboy and Penthouse magazines and we've got our arms around each other, just two men looking at adult material. And then I say, John, I've had a great night. Me and your son, Jim, who's 10, are going to sleep in a bed together now and you're not going to be in there. And you'd be like, of course, because you have a childhood.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's not making sense. I'm just looking up Thomas Arthur Mesereau Jr., who you might be familiar with, who's the attorney known for defending him in his 2005 trial, as well as defending Mike Tyson, Bill Cosby, and Danny Masterson. So Thomas Mesereau sleeps very soundly on a bed of money, I guess. He's an interesting character.
He's got a devil on each shoulder.
That's right. And he looks like a kind of.
Is he that white-haired fellow?
White-haired fellow. Yeah, I remember seeing him actually. He looks real Hollywood. Pro bono work. Yeah, you'd want to do some pro bono work after those cases. Fucking hell. I'd be like, I better go to a soup kitchen and get some of the moral squalor off my mind. But yeah, anyway, please continue. So he's got the kind of narrative that he's pushing. Because I remember when it might have been him being interviewed by Bashir, just saying, you know, this is all very innocent and doesn't enter my mind. Very sweet,
very charming.
Very sweet, very charming.
That's always my favorite line. Yeah,
doesn't enter my mind that it's sexual, and kind of like he's scandalized by that suggestion. You know, it's just not part of his worldview at all. And that obviously was, for people who wanted to defend him, that was a big thing, that, you know, well, it's different because it's MJ and, you know, it's not the same as you and me.
Another part of the 2005 trial that I just don't really think people know enough about, and again, maybe I just took an interest in this because this is another one of the Australian boys. So Michael Jackson had a close relationship with two Australian boys and two families. The first one was Wade Robson, who won a Michael Jackson like impersonator dance contest in Brisbane in the late 80s.
Yeah, okay.
And famously, I think this is true. I don't know if he came second, but Robson won and Peter Andre came second in that contest.
Wow!
So Michael meets Wade Robson, befriends him.
Yep.
a classic pattern of behavior, flies the whole Robson family to Neverland from Australia and says, hey, look, why don't you stay at one of my many pool houses, which they do. And then Michael Jackson eventually is just like, oh, why don't you, this is in Leaving Neverland. Eventually, Michael's like, hey, why don't you all go to Disneyland on my credit card, and me and Wade are going to stay here in Neverland because I'm going to I'm going to teach him how to be a superstar like me, and he's going to be super famous. And the Robsons were just like, man, could we get any luckier right now? Free Disneyland. Yeah. The second boy was Brett Barnes. Now, Brett Barnes has always insisted that nothing untoward ever happened with him and Michael Jackson. But I remember seeing Brett Barnes. I didn't know he was Australian at the time. I didn't know who he was, but I remember seeing like footage of Jackson with this kind of darker skinned, like long haired boy. And I was like, who's that cool kid that Michael's hanging out with all the time? Brett Barnes, another Australian family that Michael Jackson met, became friends with, flew them to Neverland, and then they like lived at Neverland with him on and off for years. In 2005, the prosecution called like, I think actually, I guess they would have been under cross-examination, I think, John, because I think the defense had brought them over to say, hey, Jackson's fine. He slept with Barnes and nothing happened. But then they got cross-examined. And Carly Barnes, who was Brett's sister, under cross-examination, estimated that Brett shared Jackson's bed maybe a year's worth of nights. Cross-examination. Would you say that 365 nights, and you didn't think that was at all odd? Her answer, smiling, not at all. My brother wanted it. And then I think there's some talk that Brett slept with Jackson from age 9 to 19, 10 years in total. God. So that's just like another super weird thing that I just don't think people really understand. And this is a key point that I want to come to, John, if you do accept all of this, that this overwhelming amount of evidence that at the very least he slept in the bed with what appear to be predominantly young boys for is a pattern of behavior over decades, then how do you as a Michael Jackson fan, how do you justify this? Because what other human on earth would you say who isn't Michael Jackson would you say that man gets to sleep in a bed with children that he's unrelated to thousands of times over 30 years, and it's fine.
And it's fine. And not only that, but even after one of them has reached a $23 million settlement with him and almost derailed his career, he doesn't go, you know what, I can see how that could be misconstrued. I just won't do it anymore. Like if that was –
that's right.
If that was what was going on.
Exactly. Like, so I saw somebody on TikTok say like, well, Michael, I saw somebody on TikTok almost saying like, if you were innocent of what they accused you of in 93 and then you were a dumb enough motherfucker to keep sleeping in the same bed with boys, even if it was platonic, for being that much of a dumbass, you deserve to go down. And I also wanted, so a lot of this has come up because the film's come out, the new biopic, and there's loads of people on TikTok that are kind of saying, hey, this is super, super weird. Like, I didn't know that he did all this stuff. I didn't know a lot of the details of the 2005 trial, and I've decided that Michael Jackson was likely guilty of abusing children. And then you have all this, there's like a really, really powerful and impassioned community online of Michael Jackson stans, as we would call them now, just obsessive Michael Jackson fans who won't for a second.
And they're flooding TikTok at the moment, aren't they? Like just,
Well, this is the thing. I mean, that biopic is about to gross $1 billion. So obviously people, you know, a lot of that is like just regular people, but, you know, some of us is super fans. And of course the Michael Jackson estate loves those super fans. But it is this weird need people have for idols. And I just don't really know what's happening in people's lives, because the reason I wanted to point out that I was a huge Michael Jackson obsessive. I mean, when we went to school, I was known for two things. I was known for being obsessed with the Adelaide Crows football team, and I was known for being obsessed with Michael Jackson.
It's true. It's true.
I grew up and I was like, man, I love this music. I'm going to keep listening to it. But at the same time, I'm a grown man and I don't need this man to be like an innocent angel.
No, exactly. Thankfully, you never had to deal with that with Tony Modra. He remains squeaky clean.
It just public urination, I think, was his biggest misdeed.
That's right, which was almost endearing, really.
Yeah.
Just humanized him. But that's right. But then you've obviously got some ability to engage with this material and think to yourself, this isn't his explanation and that of his defenders is just not getting anywhere. And, okay, maybe you decide, I'm still going to listen to his music, but, you do that in a way that doesn't require you to defend his personality or reputation. Whereas, I guess it is. It is a testament to the fact that he's had this kind of allure, and you could. I remember watching concerts of his when I was a kid, and they were just incredible spectacles. Unlike anything up until that point. Sort of our generation's, kind of Beatlemania or something, I guess, where people were going to these concerts. Michael Jackson would do something insane like drop out of a helicopter or, jet pack into the stadium.
Yeah, the jet pack.
And people would just be literally kind of losing their minds, like screaming and crying and tearing their clothes off and carrying on and passing out. And it was like a kind of semi, sacred spectacle.
Totally.
The way they thought of it, they were like kind of religious fanatics who were seeing their Messiah for the first time or something. And so obviously that there was something about him and his image that was able to, and obviously part of that was, he was a very talented musician, but there was more to it than that, obviously, because there were lots of very talented musicians. There was something about his image and his persona that really hooked people in. And I guess continues to do that. The strange thing with this stuff now too is people who are coming to that musical now, they might have been born, but they might not have been, or they might have been like very, very young when that stuff was going on and when it all came to light. So unlike us, they weren't learning about this stuff in real time. They might now be kind of digging back through it and asking themselves why that film just didn't engage with what seemed like pivotal events in Michael Jackson's life and legacy. And then, and apparently I was kind of looking at press for obviously the press for the film has brought that up. Press for the musical that's just finished touring in Australia brought up very similar points, which was kind of this sense of, how is it that this person continues to sort of have this pull and this capacity to, have a biopic which still succeeds despite sort of rumblings. Why aren't we just kind of out and out cancelling this person? But also, part of that is the influence of the estate. The estate was, I think, was definitely tied to the musical. I don't know if they were kind of producing it or what their exact ties were, but they were apparently big supporters of it.
Yeah,
you watch the musical,
they're behind the film too, John, the biopic.
Yeah, there you go. And so it's this kind of Michael Jackson industry. The strange thing about the musical, apparently, I didn't go and see it. I did kind of have this moment of chaotic thinking where I was like, this would be quite funny if I bought Sint tickets to the MJ musical for Mother's Day, but I decided against it in the event. But apparently there's this kind of sense in the musical that there's sort of demonizing the press, and they don't deal with the allegations, but they do deal in passing. There are kind of scenes where he's getting interviewed about other things like, are you addicted to painkillers or whatever? And then the questions from the press will fade out and he'll just start singing, all I want to see is that they don't really care about it. So it's kind of this sense of like, the media are just kind of savages and they just want to ruin me and they don't, they don't know what I'm about and blah, blah, blah. So the implication is obviously, well, the big thing that we're not talking about, well, you can put that in the same basket. And, that's, I guess, what his estate would counsel people to do. They've got no interest in revisiting any of that or in, funding a film that explores or a musical that explores any of those issues. And that, I think the producers of the film, under pressure, or the director or someone said, oh, look, maybe we'll put out a sequel that deals with that stuff. It's like, well, will you? Like, okay, great. I look forward to it. What's the expected release date?
I guess the Michael Jackson estate will be very heavily involved in that and making sure that it's a very unbiased and fair depiction of what happened.
And so you're going to have one film which celebrates him and his music, and then a follow-up which deals exclusively with sexual assault and pedophilia allegations. Like, that doesn't... Conceptually, that would be extremely weird.
That's a weird box set to get at Christmas.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's obviously just not going to happen.
It makes it very difficult. Yeah. Again, it would make it very difficult. You're with friends and you pull the box set out and you're just like, I don't know which one we should watch tonight.
Yeah.
What kind of mood are you in?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, sometimes things like Gremlins 2 is pretty tonally different to Gremlins 1, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it. So yeah, exactly. Maybe it could. Maybe it could work.
Are you in an MJ2 kind of mood tonight, or do you just want to watch a kind of lighthearted rom?
It also asks, it's an interesting question. Like, I haven't seen the film, and in part it's because I've started to be like a little bit less interested in these biopics and documentaries that are made with the backing of the estate or the people that are in them. Like, I didn't go and see the Queen musical because I knew that they'd been trying to make a warts and all Queen film for years, and the band wouldn't let them make it. And then eventually the one they let them do was like really watered down because Freddie Mercury, by all accounts, was just like a pretty wild fellow. And that Sacha Baron Cohen was for years slated to be him. And I think Sacha Baron Cohen would only do the warts and all one. And Queen were like, nah, we don't want you to be talking about any of that. And so I have just become a little bit less interested. I think similarly, as much as I loved the Michael Jordan documentary on Netflix and I liked the Posh and Becks one, it's just all made by them. So of course, and they'll do exactly what you said. They'll throw in like one little thing that will make you think like, wow, it must be an honest account if they let that in. But that's only so that they don't talk about all the other stuff.
Beckham says, there was 5 minutes there where I flirted with another woman.
That's right.
I felt, and it almost ruined my life. Anyway, moving on.
But it is.
I didn't realize Jafar Jackson, who's a member of the Jackson family, the son of Jermaine Jackson, played Michael in the musical.
That's right.
There you go.
You mean you talk about the biopic?
I mean, that's another
biopic,
reason.
John.
In the film, that it's not a musical. I mean, I suppose it is in a sense, but the film I'm talking about. And it also starred friend of the show, Mike Myers, who any project that he's been involved in, I just have nothing but good things to say about.
You know what he's in that I totally forgot, which again seems tonally weird. If I told you that Mike Myers is in a Quentin Tarantino film, does that sound like something that is real?
No, it does not.
Yeah, exactly. This is just like when I said to you, did you know that Beautiful Day by U2 contains the word tuna as in fish? And you went, that can't be true. And it is.
That's right. I'm just having a look at his film. You know what else though? He was also in Bohemian Rhapsody. So he loves
a musical
Mike
biopic.
Myers' agent just rings around saying, have you got any whitewashing biopics that Mike can get involved in about musicians? And they say, no, but do you want to do Shrek 5? And he goes, fuck it. Yeah.
Do you want to be
Shrek 5.
Do you want to be in the Jimmy Savile film we're putting together that ends before any of the allegations? It's just about Jim will fix. It's just about the magic of Jim will fix it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
But
it just ends. It ends. The credits roll when Louis Theroux is approaching Jimmy, and it cuts off.
I was going to say, I think it does. So I haven't seen the biopic. I have no problem in going and seeing it, and I'm sure that I will enjoy it. And this is like the interesting question. I mean, for me personally, I would go and see the biopic but I also, I personally know it was made by the estate, and I, for one, think, if it hasn't already been made obvious from this episode, that Michael Jackson was guilty of a lot of the things that he was accused of. And I will enjoy the music, and I dance to it at a wedding. You know, for me personally, again, separating the flute from the flautist, it is complicated. I can't quite like, I wouldn't have. This is an interesting thing. I love the music, but I wouldn't have his poster on the wall.
No, that's right. Exactly. Because then it's about him. I mean, the other thing is there are other people involved in the music. So the one Michael Jackson song that I will, that I have on, for example, on a Spotify playlist is Human Nature, because I love it. I love the arrangement.
My God.
And
what a song.
And I can tell myself, look, this isn't about Michael. This is just about the musicality of the people involved in making this song. Because was it made by Toto?
Correct. It's made by Toto. So it's even easier to enjoy because he didn't write it. So he just sang it.
I mean, I'd prefer if Toto did a sort of Taylor Swift job and said Human Nature brackets Toto's version. Yeah. And then I could enjoy it. You can find guilt-free.
I'll send you after this. You can find the demo on the demo.
There you go.
The demo was released on one of the Thriller re-releases, so you can hear the original Toto.
Wow.
And then if you want to just be real clean, just listen to the Toto version. Don't listen to the Michael Jackson version.
That's right. That's right. That'd be a good conversation starter. You say to people at a dinner party, don't you love this song? And then they accuse you of being a Michael Jackson apologist, and you're just a musical aficionado.
I only listen to Michael. I just listened to all the demos that were presented to Michael Jackson to sing, but actually never listened to the versions that he made famous.
Stance. I listened to demos and MJ covers.
That's right.
You know, tribute acts of people who've provided me with a police check. That's all.
There's two more things that I want to cover. The first one is you should watch Leaving Neverland, because again, everything that I've said here, and if anything that I've said here is making people go, I'm still just not really feeling that he was this person. Leaving Neverland is, for me, that is really the thing that I saw. And I will say this, I believe Wade Robson and James Safechuck, but I must also say that I think Wade Robson, through being in Hollywood for so long, because Wade Robson, he wins a Michael Jackson dance contest. Michael Jackson takes him into the Hollywood life. Him and his family live at Neverland on and off for years, and eventually Wade Robson becomes a famous dance choreographer. I think he choreographed for Britney Spears. So he's in entertainment in Hollywood. Right. I mean, Wade Robson has an American accent. Okay, so that's how in that world he has spent his life, and I think because of that, Wade Robson comes off a little bit performative when he talks. He has this kind of, he's being interviewed by the Leaving Neverland documentary maker, and the things that he says, they're brutal. I mean, it's very explicit, but there's just a little bit of him that's like a little bit like he's thinking too much about how to deliver the lines, and he's still thinking about like, I need to make sure this comes across right. Whereas you watch James Safechuck, and it's just like a regular guy who really doesn't seem like he has any agenda, and it's so believable, everything that he says. Michael Jackson stans will point to the fact that after Leaving Neverland came out, Safechuck got a particular detail wrong. He said that some abuse had occurred. Again, this is like such a weird sentence to say. He said that some of the abuse happened at the train station at Neverland, and it turned out that the train station wasn't built until like a year after that. However, Safechuck had been at Neverland once the train station had been built, so he no doubt. Okay. So he got like a date wrong, but the Michael Jackson stands will point to this one thing,
obviously, which is extremely common in those kinds of cases. I mean, partly because you're recalling something traumatic, but also because you're a child.
Yeah,
and as you say, like the weird thing is maybe some of these MJ stands are people who just don't believe this sort of shit generally, but then a lot of them seem to be people who probably would not extend that level of kind of brain gymnastics to anyone else accused of anything like that. Right. And you think about the kinds of things that Hollywood and people who put on musicals, tie themselves up in knots about, and get taken down for on social media, that are so much more like mild than kind of platforming someone who's accused of terrible things. It astonishes me that there's kind of, there's those stands for one thing, but there's also like a kind of chorus of people who are like, oh yeah, whatever. But, if you put on, I think I said to you before we started recording, if you put someone without a disability in a film to play a disabled character, then there's like entire press conferences about it and how it was, but that same studio is like, yeah, well, look, maybe we'll release a sequel where all of the stuff that you've just mentioned gets addressed. Okay, thanks everyone.
Yeah.
We look forward to seeing the fun movie that we put out. It's wild to me. And not only that, but I think the most egregious part of the whole story, which you haven't touched on, is the fact that Bubbles is still alive, born in 1983, Bubbles. So he's getting on, but chimpanzees go for a while. And the Michael Jackson estate has a lot to answer for, because he's just languishing in the Center for Great Apes in Wauchula, Florida, along with Jonah and Jacob, who are from Planet of the Apes, along with Bo and Joe from Tiger King, along with Sammy, started in the 96 monkey film Dunstan Checks In, which some people will remember. Sunshine, who was owned by Tom Jones as manager. So there's just a dumping ground for celebrity pets, where poor old Bubbles is still there. And apparently he still sometimes watches, this is not a joke, still sometimes watches Michael Jackson clips and appears to kind of still appears to recognize MJ. And every time I hear that story, I think that is so awful. And there should really be an expose film about that as well. That's a dark chapter.
For you, that is the one unforgivable thing that Jackson left in his wake.
I don't want to go on record as saying that, but I do want to say that's also, and should form part of perhaps if there's a third film, it should be about Bubbles.
Yes, if it should. What a box set! What a box set! ends with Bubbles just now touching the screen, watching like the Moonwalker film, just weeping.
Yeah. Well, that's like inviting someone over to watch Requiem for a Dream or something. You're like, let's do the MJ triple bill.
This is the most thematically all over the place box set I've ever received for Christmas.
Third one's just about Bubbles and the guy and the chimp from Dunstan Checks In escaping from the Center for Great Apes. A chimp caper comedy.
I wanted to also say, somebody on TikTok pointed out, like, if you go to some Michael Jackson stands, like TikTok comments, you could like find one comment from them talking about the fact that, 50-something-year-old Jared Leto, who's dating a 25-year-old, is a pedophile. And then you go and follow their comments, and they're in the Michael Jackson videos saying, where a person is saying everything that I've just said in this episode, saying never convicted. They're all out for the money.
Wow. Are these people, are they typically people who are fans of his back in the day, or are they some of them younger people who...
It's a combination. And I wanted to come to this because he is, to this day, his celebrity and his power and his magnetism is as powerful today as it ever was, because I know people whose kids are like under, let's say, 12 years old, and they have discovered him through social media and their friends, and they've gone, who is this incredible man who can dance like this? And man, this music's like really, really getting to me. And they fucking love him. Like, they become obsessed with him. So he is developing new fans through social media and YouTube, and they're just really getting into him. They're listening to the music in the car, and they're saying to mum and dad, can you put Michael Jackson on? And then, of course, there are the older fans who grew up with him and are aging, but, they have always clung on to him being this kind of innocent person that just wanted to heal the world and heal the children.
Of course.
Maybe just to sort of end the episode, John. I mean, we don't have time to go into the Cascio family, but they currently have a case going on that I think they've February 2026, 4 siblings filed a federal lawsuit, child sex trafficking, beginning with some as young as 7 and 8. They're like they're this family of 4 that their dad ran this luxury hotel. They've all 4 of them claimed that Michael abused them over the years, and they never discussed it with one another. The interesting thing about them, which is worth looking into, is that the Michael Jackson estate paid them hush money, like millions of dollars within the last few years, because I think they came to the Michael Jackson estate and said, we're going to come forward and say that this abuse happened. And the Michael Jackson estate said, we're not admitting any wrongdoing, but we will pay you millions of dollars to not come forward. And then that money ran out, and then they've come forward again and put their hand out and said, okay, we want more. But I have here that the Cascio family, I think this is over the last few years, the Cascio family have been paid out by the Michael Jackson estate $16.5 million in the last... Again, people don't know this. Like, what is going on? Why are you paying this family $16.5 million now?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I mean, why not just say, well, if you think it's false, for one thing, you could say, well, we'll see you in court.
And they will say, will argue, they will say, oh no, but it's too much trouble. It's the Jordan Chandler thing. It's like, we just pay it because just being in court's too much of a hassle.
Yeah. Which kind of, I mean, it's less plausible when Michael Jackson's gone, for one thing, and you're like, well, basically all you're doing is, because you're not putting, Michael Jackson would argue, I'm sure, well, I've got to go on tour and I don't want to put myself through the stress of a trial and whatever. But the state, it's kind of like, well, I mean, how bad can this be? You sort this out. Surely you want to give this person their day in court if you're a decent, set of people.
Yeah.
But they're basically just worried about it from a purely kind of self-interested financial perspective, which is even worse.
Yeah.
It's just like deeply cynical.
I'm not saying that like any of these families as well might not have an ulterior motive. I just think even if you take that into account, that some of them may be dodgy.
Yeah.
There's just to just watch. Just go and listen to Safe Chuck in Leaving Neverland and come back to me and be like, that seems like he's invented all that. Also the detail that he goes into and the vulnerability and the fact that he says like, I felt like I was in love with Michael Jackson. You just wouldn't, that's not what you would make up, it's just too raw and too complicated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There we are. Barrel of laughs.
I think we did pretty well. I've been wanting to talk about this for ages. And
yeah.
And as I said to you at the start, I said this is going to be somewhat of a tightrope, but I think that with our hundreds of episodes, I think we can maintain the vibe of the cast. And
because it's
still discuss these
matters. It's a matter of, I mean, obviously the allegations at the heart of it are horrendous, but it is a matter of genuine cultural interest and the psychology and the sociology of the power that he has and the power that people who support him have to kind of compartmentalize continues to astonish me. And, even if I was just the guy that did the lighting at Her Majesty's Theatre, I'd probably say, maybe I should put my hand up and say we shouldn't be doing this. But for some reason, nobody did.
for the musical.
For the musical.
Yeah, so we will return to this, John, because the Cascio family thing that's going. There's gonna be that has a court date, and then Robson and Safe Chuck. I think they're seeking $400 million from him, and that is also going to that trial or that court date has been set for 2028. So this is ongoing. There's
the other thing that, sorry, just to be a bit of a law nerd about it, the thing that fascinates me is like, in Australia, if somebody commits a crime, it's not a question of, me deciding to pursue them for that crime. Like it's a crime. This crime is, I can do that. The private prosecution is still a thing, but it's a very rarely exercised thing. Typically what happens is the state, of course, as we all know, stands in on behalf of the person who's been the victim of the crime and prosecutes the offender, because it's a crime not against that victim but against the state is the kind of underpinning of it. And so it fascinates me that these kind of machinations are going on where people are able to say, well, this is what happened to us, but, if you pay us some money, we just won't take it any further.
Yeah.
I mean, where are the police in all of this, and the public prosecuting authorities? Are they just kind of not? I mean, maybe they don't really. It's not a fight they want to have, or maybe they just don't think there's enough evidence. I don't know, but it's surprising too that, and I don't know whether any of this is covered in the material that in the docos, but like, it's surprising to me that they didn't manage to get a conviction, and that they haven't been kind of continuing to try, in the years after 2005. Maybe they have, but it's amazing that they didn't get anywhere.
There's some chat that a lot of people, and this is something that I would really like to see come out over the next few years. There's some chat that, I mean, we just have the people that we know have been paid money. Apparently, there is an allegation, unproven, that a lot of people have been paid over the years, big money, and they have the money. The estate is worth like an insane amount of money. And so they have the money to do it. There's like another guy, Jason Francia, who we didn't even get to, who was also, I think, with like an 80s, 90s young boy that hung out with Michael Jackson. He got $2 million for something. And we didn't even mention him. They just said to him,
and Corey Feldman is one of these people, isn't he, who says Michael Jackson never did anything wrong by me.
Corey Feldman said nothing. He never did anything. Yeah. Macaulay Culkin said he never did anything again. The Michael Jackson stands love to point to Macaulay Culkin and say like, obviously nothing happened because he just didn't do anything to Macaulay Culkin, or Macaulay Culkin says he didn't. And that's he's obviously an authority. The Home Alone boy, if he says that, then nothing happened ever for decades to other boys.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. There you go. I can't wait to bring this up in a press conference with Mike Myers and just have his face look the same way it did when he was on that Katrina fundraiser and Kanye West said George Bush doesn't care about black people.
Before we go, John, how is Mike Myers in a Quentin Tarantino film?
Yeah, good question.
Did you look it up? Don't cheat. If you looked it up, you've cheated.
No, I haven't looked it up. I haven't looked it up. I'm going to say he was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
That's a good guess, because it's funny, isn't it? Thematically, Tarantino's films, like I loved Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but they are becoming like a little bit more, they're still edgy, but they are a little bit more sort of cheeseball than like, he wouldn't have put,
it's true.
He wouldn't have put, like you wouldn't have said Mike Myers is in Pulp Fiction, but he could have been in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
That's right. So some kind of weird producer or something.
Mike Myers is like the British general in Inglourious Bastards who makes a brief cameo with, I think, Fassbender, where he says to him, "All right, old chap, the old Jerry's are absolutely doing a number on us. You got to get over there, and I hear speak German. You got to get over there and bloody get those Nazis." And he's got like a prosthetic nose on or something.
Yeah, okay. God, his range is unmatched.
We should do. When are we going to do a Wayne's World episode?
Yeah,
1 and 2.
From Wayne's World to the Guru, Mike Myers story.
Wayne's World.
Is that what it's called? The Guru?
Yeah, the Guru was the one that they said was the worst movie ever.
The one that. Yeah.
I loved Wayne's World. Loved Wayne's World.
It was great.
So good.
Wayne's World 2, Austin Powers. I mean, Shrek 5 coming out 2027.
Yes.
We should do what Tim and Eric did and go to the Shrek 5 premiere
and pretend that we've partnered with Shrek with the release of Shrek like they did. We want to say thank you, Shrek 5, for having us at this screening.
Exactly. Yeah.
There we go. That's a bit of fun. That's a bit of fun levity at the end of a somewhat heavy episode. Hey, if you think Michael Jackson was innocent, write us in. Absolutely, absolutely.
Can't wait to hear from the stand.
Absolutely smash the YouTube comments. And hey, look, if you think I got anything wrong, get in the comments and let me know. We can have an open-hearted and good faith conversation back and forth. I absolutely love the music.
That's what we all know. That's what a comments thread is for. And
I know all the words. I know every word to every Michael Jackson song on every album until probably was it Invincible is the one I didn't care about. But Invincible has an absolute jam on it.
Tide because the stands will go. Well, now the phone call is coming from inside the house. One of our own Michael Jackson super fans is raising the alarm, and this is more troubling than anything we've dealt with before.
That's right. Go and listen. Look, the one amazing song off Invincible, "You Rock My World," where he's with Chris Tucker in the music video. That's a great. That's one of his best songs, I reckon, and it's on his shittiest album. Boom, ba-doom, boom, boom. And all the kids are singing Human Nature on TikTok because it's in the biopic. That's huge. It's like my TikTok is just filled up with Human Nature covers. And so we are going to revisit this, particularly if there's any more news about these court cases. And that has been a great episode. I think we did a great job. And if you've enjoyed this episode, send it to a friend, and maybe you want to say to your friend, "Hey, look, these idiots got the Michael Jackson story wrong," or perhaps you have a Michael Jackson sort of stan, curious friend who you think who you're like, they all, and when we get drunk at the dinner party, they always say he never did anything. Send them this episode and say, what do you say to these things that these men are saying about some of the things that he did, some of the evidence that was found at the 2005 trial by the LA County Sheriff's Department. Send it on.
And if you don't like it, go to the comments. Great for the algo loves it when we get a fight in the comments, and we love it too.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, everybody, and we can't wait to see you next week.
The podcast.